Think about what you do every night. You crawl into a bed, pull up a blanket, turn off the lights, and expect to wake up tomorrow with all your limbs still attached. Seems normal. But imagine doing the same thing 200,000 years ago. No mattress, no locked door, no alarm system, no tiny rectangle beside your bed that lets you call the police. Just you, a dark landscape, and whatever was making noises outside. So, why did humans start sleeping together? And I don't mean couples. I mean groups of humans. Parents, children, siblings, friends. Random members of the tribe who apparently decided that personal space was a luxury for future civilizations. Because for most of human history, sleeping alone wasn't just unusual. It could be dangerous. And the weirdest part is that sleeping together may have helped solve several problems at once. Let's go back to the beginning. Imagine an ancient human settlement after sunset. During the day, everything is manageable. You can see predators. You can see where you're stepping. You can see the other members of your group. But then the sun disappears. And suddenly your entire environment becomes a giant black loading screen. Humans aren't particularly impressive nighttime creatures. We don't have owl eyes. We don't have giant ears that rotate toward suspicious noises. We don't have claws. And we definitely don't have a built-in defense mechanism that says, "Don't worry, the lion is actually more scared of you." So darkness created a problem. And one obvious solution was to stay close to other humans. Because if you're alone and something starts moving outside the shelter, you have a problem. If 20 people are sleeping nearby, you have 20 potential alarm systems. One person wakes up. They hear something. They sit up. Everyone else goes, "What?" And suddenly the entire group is awake, which is extremely annoying when the noise turns out to be a branch falling over. But if the noise really is a predator, now you've got a whole group of humans making noise, throwing things, waving sticks, and generally becoming the least appetizing target in the forest. So sleeping together wasn't necessarily about comfort. It was security. Basically, ancient humans invented the world's first neighborhood watch. Except nobody had to attend the meetings. But there's another problem. Temperature. Humans are weirdly bad at conserving heat. We're not covered in thick fur like many mammals. And at night, especially in colder environments, that becomes a serious issue. So if several people sleep close together, their bodies can help reduce heat loss. This is one reason social sleeping can make sense in cold environments. One human is basically a badly insulated biological radiator. Put 10 of them together, and suddenly you've got a prehistoric heating system. Not a very hygienic heating system, but heating is heating. And this brings us to something important. Ancient humans weren't just trying to survive predators. They were trying to survive the night itself. Because nighttime wasn't simply daytime but darker. It changed what you could do. You couldn't hunt effectively. You couldn't travel easily. You couldn't gather food efficiently. Your vision became terrible. So once the sun went down, your best strategy was often to stop moving around and stay somewhere safe. And the safest place wasn't necessarily the biggest cave or the thickest shelter. It was the place where other people were. This is where sleeping together starts becoming more interesting. Because humans don't just use groups for protection. We use groups for information. Imagine you're lying awake at night. Someone beside you suddenly wakes up. They heard something. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's an animal. Maybe it's another group. Maybe it's just a rock rolling down a hill. But now you're aware of something you weren't aware of 10 seconds ago. That's incredibly useful. A group allows information to spread quickly. One person notices danger. Everyone benefits. And this creates a strange trade-off. Sleeping near other people might disturb your sleep. Someone moves. Someone coughs. A baby cries. Someone decides this is apparently the perfect time to scratch their entire back against the ground. You lose some sleep quality, but you gain security. And evolution doesn't necessarily care whether your night was peaceful. It cares whether you survive long enough to have another morning. There's also something else happening when humans sleep together. Social bonding. Humans are extremely social animals. We spend enormous amounts of time maintaining relationships. Talking, touching, helping, watching, sharing food, looking after children. And sleeping in proximity keeps people physically close during a huge portion of the day. That matters. Because a group isn't useful simply because there are lots of bodies standing around. The group has to cooperate. If someone gets injured, someone needs to help. If a child wakes up, someone needs to respond. If food is found, someone needs to share information about it. If danger appears, people need to react together. Being physically close makes all of that easier. And babies make this even more complicated. Human babies are spectacularly helpless. They can't walk. They can't feed themselves. They can't escape danger. They can't exactly wake up and say, "Mother, I have reviewed our current shelter situation and I believe we should relocate." They just cry. So, human children require prolonged care. And sleeping near caregivers makes nighttime protection much easier. A sleeping child isn't simply a smaller adult. It's a giant evolutionary investment that can't defend itself. So, keeping children close to adults would have been a pretty sensible strategy. And once children are sleeping near adults, you have another reason for the group to remain close together. The whole thing starts feeding itself. People stay close because they're safer. Children stay close because they need protection. Adults stay close because children need them. And everyone benefits from having more people nearby. Congratulations! You've accidentally invented a social network. Except instead of notifications, it's just someone yelling because they heard a twig snap. But here's the fascinating question. Did humans choose to sleep together because they consciously thought through all of this? Probably not. Nobody sat around an ancient campfire and said, "All right, everyone, I've completed the cost-benefit analysis of communal sleeping." Evolution doesn't work like that. People simply behaved in ways that tended to work. If sleeping near others made survival easier, those behaviors could become common. And over thousands of generations, social sleeping could become deeply woven into human life. But there's a catch. Sleeping together isn't always beneficial. Crowding can increase disturbance. People can spread infections. Groups have to deal with conflict. And sleeping close to everyone isn't necessarily ideal in every environment. So, humans didn't end up with one universal sleeping arrangement. Different cultures developed different ways of sleeping. Some people slept on the ground. Some used shelters. Some slept on raised surfaces. Some slept in groups. Some slept in smaller family units. The details changed. But the basic idea remained remarkably useful. Don't spend the most vulnerable hours of your day completely alone. And this might explain something about modern humans. Today, many of us sleep behind walls, with doors, locks, electricity, heating, security cameras, and sometimes a dog who will bravely investigate the suspicious noise. We don't need 10 people surrounding us just to make it through the night. But our brains were shaped in environments where social proximity mattered. That's why being alone in complete darkness can still feel strangely uncomfortable. You can know perfectly well that you're safe. You can be lying in a locked apartment on the 15th floor, and yet your brain hears one tiny sound from the kitchen and immediately goes, "Interesting. This is how we die." Your logical brain knows it's probably the refrigerator. Your ancient brain has already written the obituary. And that may be one of the hidden legacies of our prehistoric sleeping habits. For ancient humans, nighttime meant vulnerability. Being close to other people meant protection, warmth, information, and help. Sleeping together wasn't necessarily some romantic invention. It was a survival strategy, a way of turning a group of vulnerable individuals into something much harder to surprise, freeze, or isolate. And eventually, humans got really good at doing something our ancestors could barely imagine. We made nighttime safe enough that you can now sleep completely alone, in a dark room, with the door closed, while voluntarily watching a documentary about ancient predators, and then wondering why you can't fall asleep. Human progress is weird. We spent hundreds of thousands of years making the night less dangerous, and then invented horror movies. So the next time you crawl into bed tonight, remember, you're not just going to sleep. You're participating in one of humanity's oldest survival habits. The ancient world may be gone, but somewhere deep inside your brain, nighttime still means one thing: stay close.